All right, excellent. Hopefully everyone can hear me. My name is Dinah Sbelgio Kinard. I'm the Director of Admission Partnerships and Programs at St. Edward's University. It's wonderful to have you with us today in our virtual space on the Hilltop. We have a fantastic presentation prepared for you about the pre-health programs at St. Edward's. We have people joining us today in attendance from all over the country: Texas, Louisiana, Washington, Colorado. Many of you may be in snow right now. Some of you may be in sunshine and warmer degrees. Either way, we're happy to have you here today and hope that this webinar will be informative and helpful to you. We'll go ahead and go to the next slide. I want to go over a few logistics related to our webinar. So our presenter will be speaking for about 30 minutes, covering kind of all of the things that you probably want to know about studying pre-health at St. Edward's University and what those opportunities look like and can provide for you. We will have plenty of time to get to any questions that you have at the end of the formal part of the presentation. We are not using the chat feature today with Zoom. We are using the Q&A tool. So as you have questions, as you're hearing the presentation and things come to mind that you want to know and learn more about, please do add your questions to the Q&A tool. We will leave all of the questions until the end of the formal presentation and then address any questions that you have at that time. So you can contribute them along the way. You can wait until the end of the presentation to contribute your questions. We will keep this webinar active as long as you have questions, and we know we have a big audience today. So again, thank you so much for being here. Again, my name is Dinah Kinard. I'm in the admission office. Certainly, while we know you may have lots of questions for our presenter about pre-health, also if you have questions about admission or the admission process, I can answer those as well for you when we get to the end of the formal presentation. So again, thank you so much for taking the time today to be connected with us via Zoom. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jason De La Rosa. He's the Director of the Career and Professional Development Office on campus, and he will be speaking to you today. Thank you. Jason?
Thanks so much, Dinah. So as she mentioned, my name is Jason De La Rosa. I'm the Director of Career and Professional Development here at St. Edward's University. And pre-health professions is part of the Career and Professional Development Office. And so some things I'm going to talk to you about today are going to involve both areas. So I think when people think about pre-health, these are the main six that kind of pop into a lot of brains: medical, dental, veterinary, physical therapy, nursing, occupational therapy. And those tend to be the most popular showings that we have on our campus that students show interest in. But we're also working with students who are interested in pharmacy and optometry and public health. It's just that these six are the ones that people tend to gravitate towards the most. One thing I want to talk about today is, what does pre-health mean? What does it mean to be a pre-health student? What does it mean to be a member of the pre-health community? First and foremost, it is all about service to one's community. One of the things we talk about with the healthcare providers here in Austin that we're connected to is that being a member of a healthcare profession is about giving back. It's about giving back to the Austin community, to the larger health community. And it's something that's very important, especially with what's going on right now. Being pre-health also has to show that you have an understanding of the health professions that goes beyond, hey, I'm a patient, or I've been a patient and I know what it looks like to receive care. We want our students to make sure they have a solid understanding of what it means to be a healthcare professional by getting a shadowing experience, by getting exposure in that field that they're interested in. Also, it involves a great deal of ethical, responsible decision-making. So we have this committee on campus called the Health Professions Advisory Committee, which will eventually write a letter for qualified students for various health professions. And one of the things we're going to look at is, has that student made ethical, sound, responsible decisions in their time at St. Edward's University? But what I want to talk about as well is, why should you or your son or daughter pursue pre-health at St. Edward's? The big thing here is that we give a lot of individualized attention. So the next slide I'm going to talk about the various players involved, but students tend to get a lot of attention, and we have really great acceptance rates that I think really show that. We are a mission-driven institution, so why does that matter? Being a social justice institution that is very much attuned to giving back to the community is something that has become a bit of a calling card for St. Edward's University. And so when we began pre-health professions back in summer of 2015, one of the things we did was we made the rounds. We talked to all the deans of admissions at the medical schools, the dental schools, some of the veterinary schools, and said, what is it that you have liked about St. Edward's University students? What things can we be doing better? And the resounding answer was that our community focus was a big part of who St. Edward's University really is. And so that's something that we take great pride in. There's also a great deal of customized planning. So I think people hear that, they think about their course sequencing. Yes, there is a bit of customized course sequencing because you need to take certain prerequisites to make sure you have the classes you need to get accepted into a medical school, dental school, veterinary school, etc. But a lot of it is also going to take into account kind of the trifecta of experiences. So the first one being healthcare exposure, second one being service to the community in a non-healthcare capacity, and the third one is research, depending on the type of healthcare professional school that you're trying to get into. But there's a lot of planning that goes involved. You have a lot of different people working with you to make sure that you reach those goals. And we're going to help get you connected to those resources. Also, we have a really strong record of success, which I'm going to show you later on. As I mentioned before, it really does take a team. And so there are a variety of people working on campus to make sure that people are successful in reaching their goals of becoming healthcare professionals. So first and foremost, every student has a success coach that's going to be working with students in pre-health for academic sequencing and curriculum. They're really going to dig into kind of what that student is going to take in that first year. So a mix of Bio 1, Bio 2, probably Chemistry 1, Chemistry 2, and a few other courses depending on the area of interest. Every student also has a career coach, which is going to work with students on resume development, talking about their goals, helping them get connected to those experiential learning opportunities like healthcare exposure, service, and research. We also have a programming and events coordinator in career and professional development who's going to host a number of programs and events. We actually have about 20 to 25 events that are pre-health related on any given year. While those have kind of taken a bit of a turn this year with the pandemic, we are still offering the same number of events. It's just they're happening virtually this year. In my role as Director of Career and Professional Development, I'm working with students who are involved in the Joint Admission Medical Program, which I'll talk about later on. And when students get to their application or interview preparation stage for medical school, dental school, all the other health profession schools, that's when I really kind of dig in and work very, very closely with the students to make sure that they are doing the things they need to do to have a very sound application for those programs. And of course, we have wonderful faculty members who are going to, of course, be teaching the classes, make sure the students get the good foundation they need to be successful once they actually get into their health professions programs. They'll be the ones who are getting them started in research and providing sound mentorship. In terms of general services that are available to every single student at the university, we're going to connect people to experiential learning. So when it comes to health professions, of course, I mentioned before, service, healthcare exposure, tours. We normally do 1 or 2 tours per year. So we'll go out to a medical school, we'll go out to a dental school, we'll go out to a physical therapy school, but those are not happening right now. Because these health profession schools have said, hey, we want to kind of make sure that we're providing a very safe environment for the people who come in for clinic. And so they have not resumed those as of yet for groups. There will be personal statement reviews because a big part of getting accepted into a health professions program is writing an abundant amount of essays. And so we'll work with the students on that. We also do some pretty extensive interview practice and critiques. A few of the people who are on our Health Professions Advisory Committee, including myself, actually do interviews for some of the medical schools across Texas. And of course, we'll talk to students about values and vocation. And we talk about this with everybody. Why is it that your student wants to do what it is they want to do? They can secretly tell us, hey, it's because I want to make a whole lot of money, but we are going to coach them on making sure they have that conversation about like, this is what it means to be a doctor. This is what it means to be a physical therapist. So Austin is an absolutely wonderful city. It's a great place to learn to be a college student. It's a great place to connect to one's community. And I think St. Edward's University does a wonderful job of making sure we are working with the community that we are a part of on the local scale as well as a statewide scale, because I'm going to talk about how Texas admissions are a little bit different than national admissions, especially when it comes to medical school. Here are just some fun pictures of events that we've had in the past, pre-pandemic. And so what you'll see up in the top is our Joint Admission Medical Program info session. Those are for students who are wanting to apply to a program in Texas, which would basically guarantee admission into a Texas public medical school. The picture on the very bottom is our annual suture clinic. So we actually partner up with another organization off campus, and they come to campus again when we're not in the middle of pandemic to teach students how to do sutures. And so we've done them on bananas, we've done them on pig's feet, we've done them on a variety of other items to help simulate that environment for students. And then we also are very much committed to service work. And so what you see on the top right corner is our annual Share the Love event, which is held usually Valentine's Day or Valentine's Day weekend of every year. So where each of our pre-health organizations on campus chooses a different topic or social justice issue that is healthcare related to raise money for. And so we usually end up raising anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 per year to give back to the community that we're a part of. On this slide, you'll see a variety of the different health professions visits and tours that we've taken over the past couple of years. And these are usually driven by the areas that students want to go to. Or if a school's saying, hey, we really, really want to recruit more St. Edward's University students, can you go ahead and bring your students by for a tour? Then we'll have some of those. There's been a whole lot of other schools that we have done visits and tours with. A lot of schools that we can't necessarily get out to will come to our campus. And right now they're doing a lot of virtual info sessions. So they're calling me up and saying, Jason, I'm coming from this medical school. Can we do a virtual info session? It's actually easier for us this year. So of course we say yes. And students are getting full advantage of those opportunities. Now, the next slide is not meant to scare anybody, but this is a competitive road, right? So these are the admissions numbers for medical and dental schools in the state of Texas for the group of students who just started fall of 2020. Now, again, these are for the people who were going into medical school, going into dental school. So we're looking at about medical school in the state of Texas has about a 26.8% acceptance rate. Dental school, depending on the year, is about a 30 to 33% acceptance rate. So I want y'all to be mindful of those numbers. Med school, again, 26.8%. Dental school, 30 to 33%. So if we take those numbers as a point of comparison for our acceptance rates since fall of 17 through fall of 20, we are doing well above the average, right? So if that Texas number is 30 to 33%, fall 17, we had 80%, and all of them did get interviews, so that's a great thing. I want to point out the difference between those who utilize the services and those who do not utilize services. Sometimes students say, hey, I'm going to do this on my own. I don't want to utilize the pre-health office or the career office or get that letter of evaluation from the Health Professions Advisory Committee. And so you can see the numbers that are a little bit closer to the national, or I'm sorry, the Texas averages. So fall of 18, 100% of acceptance for those who utilize services, 25% for those who did not. Fall 19, again, same thing. And fall of 20, 100% acceptance rate, 0% acceptance rate for those who did not utilize services. And the way we know those numbers is because the dental schools and medical schools in the state of Texas report that back to us. They'll send me a report every year saying, hey, here are all the students who applied to our programs. And then I kind of pull the numbers out of who actually utilized the office and those who did not utilize the office. Moving along to medical, because I think that this is probably the area that people have the largest questions about, just because this is the lion's share of applications each year. So again, we have pretty good success rates there. Keep in mind, those are about a, what did I say, 26.8% acceptance rate for the state of Texas medical schools. Our very first 2 years of having a pre-health admissions area, we had 100% acceptance rates. And then fall of 19, they dipped a little bit, but they're still better than average. In fall of 20, still well above average. So we're more than double. What I want to point out, though, is that fall of 20 in particular, we kind of knew what was going to happen before it happened, because we were seeing that the numbers of the MCAT scores were going down with practice tests. And then the pandemic occurred, which is right around 3 weeks before most of our students' testing date. And so the scores for the MCAT dropped because I think there were a lot of things going on with folks in their lives. And so it certainly impacted admissions numbers, but those admissions numbers are going to, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the wrong year. We're looking at the numbers for next year already, and we're tracking pretty well, but the MCAT for the fall 20 entry year and the fall 21 entry year were a little bit lower than we would have expected. This last year, partly due to the pandemic. I do want to point out our pre-health success for other areas of interest. So 100% acceptance rate for fall 20 for our nursing students, our physical therapy students, and our occupational therapy students. Some of the other programs don't report their numbers in as a consistent way as these. So public health, pharmacy, and optometry, I've not seen those numbers for this current year yet. I'm trying to run a report on that as we speak. For those of you who are from the state of Texas and know that your son or daughter might want to attend medical school in the state of Texas, we have a program called JAMP. It's the Joint Admission Medical Program, which basically helps to provide an on-ramp into Texas public medical schools for underrepresented communities. So with this, they're looking at the socioeconomic status of students and their families when you fill out the FAFSA. So on that FAFSA form, they're looking at what is the estimated family contribution. I would encourage people to look at texasjamp.org as a website. So you have to be a Texas resident. You have to have taken the SAT or ACT. They are thinking about waiving that for the next coming cycle for JAMP. And Dinah can talk about what that might mean for admissions if that were to happen for JAMP anyways. And then they provide free MCAT prep if accepted into the program, and you would get guaranteed admission to a Texas public medical school if all the criteria are met and if one is accepted into the program. There are 30 seats per year for private undergraduate institutions. And in every year we've had 1, 2, or 3 students. I think 3 has been our max, but we've had that twice now. Here are some of the schools in which our students have been offered admission. That's not to say that they have gone to all these programs. Sometimes they've said, hey, I'm accepted to multiple programs, because many of our students get accepted to, I think the average is 4 schools per year. Students are accepted to an average of 4 schools per year. There was one year where our students were averaging about 8 or 9 interviews per season. And so that's actually a really high number. So here's just an offering of some of the schools that have offered admission to our students in the past. I also want to talk about some of our pipeline programs. So these 4 institutions on this slide are institutions which have reached an agreement with St. Edward's University. And so I'm going to talk about each of these for a moment. So if a student was interested in getting a degree from St. Edward's University and then going on to get another degree in nursing, Baylor University reserves 5 seats per year for St. Edward's University students who are qualified. If a student is interested in pharmacy, Notre Dame of Maryland University, which is located in Baltimore, they are basically offering a 4+4 program. So 4 years at St. Edward's University and 4 years in their pharmacy program, and they are giving guaranteed interviews for qualified applicants. Furman University, it is their Master of Science in Community Engaged Medicine. Furman University is in Greenville, South Carolina. They are a strong partner of ours. And so sometimes students say, hey, you know what? I want to take a little bit of a time off before I get into medical school or dental school or whatever school I'm trying to go into, and learn a little bit more about kind of social justice issues and see where sociology and medicine mix. And so their Master of Science in Community Engaged Medicine program is a 1-year accelerated program, which helps with admission into medical school. So some of our students have done that as a way to just learn a little bit more. Others have done it as a way to say, hey, you know, my undergraduate GPA wasn't the best, but I know I can handle it. And so they go do this program and then they become stronger candidates for when they eventually do apply to a medical school or dental school or vet school. University of the Incarnate Word in San Antonio, Texas, we just reached an agreement with them this past fall in which they are guaranteeing either interviews or seats of admission for various programs. And so the 4 programs are optometry, pharmacy, physical therapy, and osteopathic medicine. And so the physical therapy program is guaranteeing, I believe, 10 seats per year. Pharmacy and optometry are guaranteeing interviews, at least 10 interviews per year. And the medical school is guaranteeing 10 interviews and 2 seats per year. So For each of these programs, if a student meets the admission standards, which I'm aware of, the whole career team is aware of, and the success coaches and faculty are aware of, if your student is interested in those when they reach the Hilltop, we're here to make sure that they are being advised properly to make sure they meet the academic requirements as well as the experiential requirements for admission. So of course, you can always connect with career and professional development. You can email us at seucareer@stedwards.edu. You can always call us if you have questions about pre-health. We are checking our email a little bit more frequently these days. We do check the voicemail once or twice a day, but you'll get a much quicker response from us via email. We do have a new career website, which is career.stedwards.edu. And on that site, you will see a tab that is called Career Communities. If you scroll down, there's one that says Affinity Communities, and it says Pre-Health. And it will tell you a lot of different pieces of information about pre-health on campus. You can also see an assortment of our different events if you want to get a sense of what events we do have in the career office as well as for pre-health in general. And so I think that wraps up all the things I needed to talk about today. And so I'm going to open the floor for Q&A.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason, for that fantastically comprehensive and thorough presentation that covered so many key points that I know our students want to know about. And of course, we have some great questions already coming in. So students, please do feel free to add questions to the Q&A. We have a question here, Jason, for you, that there was a term referenced BCPM, an acronym. Oh, yes. BCPM. Do you mind kind of just going over that again in terms of what does it stand for and talking a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that a lot of the health profession schools will look for are going to be the cumulative GPA. So your overall, whether you've done stuff via dual credit, done stuff at St. Ed's, or if you've done things other places. And then they're also going to look at your BCPM, which stands for biology, chemistry, physics, mathematics. So any course you've taken that is a college credit bearing course that has a prefix of BIOL, CHEM, PHYS, or math, that is going to be taken into account for your BCPM. Certain schools, like nursing schools, for instance, they won't call it a BCPM. They'll look at your prerequisite GPA.
Excellent. That's helpful. So just as a follow-up to that, I know in the admission office, we're often interacting with students who come in with some type of dual credit or college credit through perhaps AP tests or dual credit courses, and they might have some biology or math credits kind of coming in as a new freshman to St. Edward's. So would those courses be calculated in the BCPM as well?
Yeah, as long as they earned a letter grade for it. So AP won't go into it just because that's a credit. But if they did dual enrollment, for instance, in high school, I see a lot of those, particularly in biology and math. I don't see it as much for physics or chemistry, just based on what I've seen over the years. But those will get taken into account. And I think that sometimes that can scare folks because they're like, oh my gosh, I got a C, but I did a college level course when I was a junior in college or a junior in high school. Don't fret. There's also a thing called upward trajectory. So sometimes people see those BCPM numbers or those cumulative GPA numbers and think, oh my gosh, I'm already in the hole before I even start college. What's going on there? What they're going to look at is how have you improved over time? So as the degree of difficulty got harder and your study skills got better, did you improve in your GPA? And the answer is typically yes for a lot of students, because I've seen students over the years who maybe they had a rough dual enrollment period. Maybe they had a rough freshman year of college. And then once they kind of got their feet under them, they really improved, especially with the support that we have on campus with our supplemental instruction and our tutoring and the success coaches.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So we have a question here, just going back to the conversation about pipeline admission. Can you talk a little bit more about what that process looks like to qualify for pipeline admission?
Yeah, so I think the first and maybe most important thing is make sure you're connected to me in my office. So one of the things that they ask in all of these programs is, did this student have a regular point of communication with your office, and can you basically vouch for the student? So if I don't know the student at all, it's really hard for me to write a letter saying, you know what, the student was wonderful, because I want to say you're wonderful. But we need to make sure that you're connected to the career office. So the second you come to campus, virtually or in person, whatever that looks like, Make sure you get connected to the career office, meet with your career coach. I think the other part of it is there are certain GPA standards. And so, you know, is there a particular program that we might be able to key in on?
I don't know. This, for the student who asked that question, please feel free to contribute a follow-up question if there's a specific pipeline admission program you're interested in learning more about. So we'll kind of wait and come back to that perhaps and see.
Perfect. Sounds good.
And certainly if you know, if the student who asked that question has any kind of follow-up questions specific about pipeline admission, please feel free to contribute in the Q&A.
So I'll talk generally for the meantime until we come back around, but I think part of it will be GPA, of course, is a factor. Healthcare exposure is a factor, like they'll want a typical number of hours. So depending on the program, they might say, hey, we want 35 hours of exposure. Some will say 50. Some will say, hey, we need at least a 3.25 GPA. Some will say a 3.5. It just depends. But certainly strong enough GPA, exposure to the field and service work and connection to the career office. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. I know that one of the things that makes for a really strong application as well for pre-health programs from the Hilltop is just all of the research that our students do alongside professors and just opportunities they have to present at conferences and work on research projects either at St. Edward's or perhaps somewhere else in the summer. So can you talk a little bit about that research experience and opportunity that's available to students at St. Edward's? And there is a question, thank you so much for this question for the student who asked, but talk a little bit about how soon students can get into the research labs. I mean, I know that you know, sometimes students even as freshmen can certainly get into the labs for research. So the question is specifically asking, is that available for freshmen, and what does research kind of look like at St. Edward's?
Yes, so there are all sorts of research opportunities for students as early as freshman year. So sometimes it might be a 2-week research opportunity just to do something kind of quick to kind of get acclimated to what research with a faculty member will look like, think through the critical thinking process. So it might be a quick 2-week thing that happens right before you even start your freshman year. It could be a summer research project that will last the duration of that summer between freshman and sophomore year. And a lot of these things you apply for, right? So and people are like, oh my gosh, I have to apply for something? Yes, right? Because if you're able to show that you applied for this thing and you were chosen for it and you did a great job at it, then that's going to be the sort of thing that sets you apart when you're eventually applying for the beast of an application that a medical school application is. I've seen medical school applications be anywhere from like 25 to 45 pages long when it's all said and done. So the quick, 1 to 2 page application you do for your research that your faculty members take the time to review very carefully and thoroughly is a great learning curve, even if you don't get selected for the research. But I think every student that I've met with has gotten some research opportunity on campus if they want it. I think the big part of that is our faculty members want to help push the career goals forward of our students. And so, I think Dr. Lisa Gehring, for instance, she does work with flies, fruit flies. And so she's on our Health Professions Advisory Committee. And so anytime a student's like, you know what, I haven't actually done my research yet. She's like, you're a junior, you've got to do some research. So she usually tries to find some way to get people connected to stuff. And I think a lot of our faculty members do that on a regular basis. And I think they would say this too, get started with research on campus, then apply to off-campus research opportunities that are a little bit more difficult to get into. But if you've got great research under your belt on campus, and you can get your research investigator, your I just blanked on the word there, but your faculty mentor to write that letter of evaluation for you for off-campus research, that's really going to set you apart. But the short answer is yes, you can do research as early as freshman year. I have some students who have done research at St. Ed's for 3 years running in the lead up to their application for health professions programs.
Excellent. And I know that, I know this was mentioned in the presentation, but probably it's worth repeating that, classes are very small at St. Edward's. 18 is the average class size. So when students are taking, organic chemistry and introduction to biology and some of those preliminary courses in natural sciences that perhaps at some universities may be more lecture style and in a large auditorium where you're not necessarily connected to the faculty member. At St. Edward's, those courses are in small classes where you get to know the faculty member right from the very beginning as a science student, and just provides a more robust opportunity for mentoring and connection and research and all of the opportunities that you described in your presentation.
Yeah, and I would add something too here, right? Like, I think that we, and I forgot to say this earlier, people tend to think of health professions admissions and that you need to be a science student. And I think that's one of the joys of being at a liberal arts institution. We are seeing that the number of students who are accepted into medical school, for instance, it used to be a 90-10 split. So 90% of those students who were accepted were biology, biochemistry, chemistry. That's now at about a 65-35 split. So the other popular majors are things like sociology, psychology, philosophy. And I think that we've seen a decent number of our own students who don't come from a bio or a biochem or a chem major. They're something else. They're behavioral neuroscience, they're psychology, they're kinesiology, and they're still getting accepted into these programs because they took the time to pursue the thing they were excited about and passionate about, while still taking care of the prerequisites and performing well to show, you know what, I've got a whole lot of other ways of thinking about problems that I can apply to my eventual med school, dental school, vet school, whatever. And so I would definitely encourage people to pursue what it is that they're excited about and passionate about. And we will find a way to make sure that you can also get your prereqs taken care of on time to get you into your program.
Excellent. Thank you for talking about that, Jason, because I do think that is something that is really important for students to understand, is that you don't have to be a biology major or a chemistry major, or even a natural sciences major, to pursue pre-health, at St. Edward's through HPAC, and also just beyond as you apply to graduate school. So to that end, I know we have a question from a student who asked, what is the most popular major? What do you see most commonly for students who are interested in pre-health? I can venture a guess, but I'll let you go.
It's going to be biology. So for anybody who's going for like medical, it tends to be biology. I think that, I think that biochemistry seems to be the most popular for dental school students. Now that I'm kind of running the numbers in my head of who I've seen accept in the past couple of years. So physical therapy, kinesiology, pre-physical therapy is the most popular track. But I would say that behavioral neuroscience is not far behind biology for those pre-med students. So it sort of depends on which area they're trying to get into, but I'd say biology, and then behavioral neuro, and then for sure anybody who's trying to go physical therapy, the kinesiology pre-physical therapy degree plan is the most popular for those.
Excellent. So we do have a question just while we're on the subject of kind of majors and how it fits into the pre-health program. What section would psychiatry go under? What area do students usually kind of pursue at the university if they're interested in eventually going into psychiatry? And then also as an additional point to that question, the students wanting to know a little bit about when the pre-health program kind of officially begins. Like, when do you usually begin that process at St. Edward's?
Yeah, fantastic. So if a student's interested in psychiatry or any other kind of specialization within medicine, you still go to medical school, right? So psychiatry, I think sometimes we'll have students like, oh, do I go to like PhD school for that, or do I go get my MD? You go get your MD for psychiatry, right? So you're going to go to med school, you're going to do your rounds of rotations. So you'll do OB-GYN rounds, psychiatry, general practice, all of those things. And so we've seen students certainly in their residency rotations right now for psychiatry, and they've come from all sorts of backgrounds. So I've seen bio. I see a lot of students who show an interest in it, who are either psychology or behavioral neuroscience for their undergraduate major. I'm still waiting to see if psychiatry is the thing they have chosen for their actual forever field. Because that's the thing, right? So what I always tell people when we get to the admissions process for med school is that you are writing your admissions application to get into med school to be a good doctor. So I usually say, put your specializations aside, like, because people are like, I want to do surgery, or I want to do OB-GYN, or I want to do psychiatry. I'm like, okay, good. Keep that in the back of your mind, because we want to show what you've done to kind of show that this is the right path for you. But we always say, but I'm also open. I'm open to learning all sorts of things. Sorry, I went on a weird tangent there. So psychology, behavioral neuro is the quick answer to that. And then what was the second part of the question?
Well, and I think that was a good tangent, Jason, though. So thank you
Yeah.
for sharing all of that. The second part to that question was really just about when does pre-health
Oh,
begin?
right.
Like when does a student kind of initiate that process? And when would it be too late to start pre-health? So if you come to St. Edward's initially not thinking you want to do pre-health, but then you decide you want to, what is kind of the last point of being able to take advantage of pre-health as
Yeah.
well?
I tell people there's all sorts of ways to do this. I've met with plenty of students who do it in a very traditional way, and they come in freshman year, first fall semester, they take our first year seminar for pre-health professions, where we give exposure to a variety of healthcare professionals in the Austin area who talk about what their day-to-day looks like, how they got into the field, what they love about it, and what they hate about it. Because we want to make sure that students are getting a very clear sense of the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? It's not all rainbows and unicorns and sunshine all the time. It is still a job. So we want to make sure people know the truth about it. So people usually start that very first semester, but I've also seen students who contact me 3 weeks before graduation as seniors saying, you know what? I think I've just now realized that I want to be a doctor. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about that. And so we usually have a long conversation and I say, okay, you're about to graduate. The beauty of it is you have access to the career office and pre-health professions for life. Once you graduate St. Edward's University, you can reach out to us anytime. So I'm actually working with a student who is 35. He graduated from St. Edward's at the age of 22. He has had a very successful career and has had a great family as a social worker. He decided this past summer that he wanted to take a twirl at becoming a doctor. And so we've been working together. He's actually come back to St. Edward's. He's doing his prerequisites for medical school at St. Ed's as a post-baccalaureate student. So I don't think it's ever too late. I think you can come back, you can do the things. And even if you don't take the classes at St. Ed's, we'd love for you to. You still have access to us as a service.
Well, that's really an amazing story, and certainly, a good reminder to just everyone who's on the webinar today or listening to this in the future that you do. I mean, that is one of the benefits of coming to St. Ed's is you have access to Jason and his team in the Career and Professional Development Center for a lifetime. And as we know, things change in the economy, things change in our own personal lives, and the need to kind of redirect our professional skills and our career interests will happen over the course of a lifetime. So it's wonderful to know that that is a resource should you become a Hilltopper, that you have for the lifetime have access to a support team to kind of help you through that, not just while you're on the Hilltop, but once you've left the Hilltop as well. So going back to the pipeline question, Jason, our student who asked that question was specifically interested in the Baylor University program. So can you talk a little bit more about the pipeline program specific for Baylor?
Yes. So with that one in particular, you would complete your degree at St. Edward's University. I've seen some students do it in 3 years. I've seen some students typically do it in 4. You choose any major you want. And then you complete the prerequisites. And so some of the prerequisites off the top of my head are anatomy and physiology 1 and 2, general chemistry 1, and molecular. There we go. And you have to, I think, maintain at least a 3.0 GPA in those science prerequisites. And then I think about a 2.75 or a 3.0 overall GPA in your other prerequisites for the program. And so when you finish St. Edward's, the way it has worked in the past is you graduate, you have about a week to get to Dallas, because Baylor's nursing program is in Dallas, not Waco. And then you start their program and you have a year to finish it. So you basically are earning 2 bachelor's degrees, which really helps your earning potential over the course of 4 or 5 years, depending on how quickly you get through your degree requirements for St. Edward's and the prerequisites.
Excellent, thank you. So we have a couple of questions related to test score. One is related to the SAT or the ACT score required to be accepted to St. Edward's, and then the other is about the average MCAT score for medical students. So I'll take the first question. As it relates to SAT and ACT scores to apply for admission to St. Edward's is now test optional, and we are permanently test optional. So it's not just for this year, it's moving forward. So I know we have some high school juniors and even sophomores on the line as well. So you do not need to worry about submitting a test score for admission to be considered for admission and for merit scholarships at St. Edward's this year or moving forward. If you want to submit a test score, you can. But essentially we are not requiring it, and you are not disadvantaged in any way in terms of admission or for merit scholarship consideration. We are looking very heavily at your GPA, your high school curriculum, obviously other things as a part of your application, like your essay, your resume of activities, and also putting all of that in the context of the extremely unusual circumstances that you all are in right now as high school students. So just know that we are very empathetic and understanding to the challenging nature that we are kind of all experiencing right now, but most especially for those of you in school, whether it's in college or in high school, and that is also part of our holistic review process of your application. So if you want to present a test score, you can, but you do not need to present a test score now or in the future to be considered for admission or for merit scholarships at St. Edward's University. Jason, would you like to take the question about the MCAT, the average MCAT score for our students?
Sure. So point of reference, the MCAT is scored on a range of 478 to 528. 500 on the nose is about 50th percentile. And so most of the medical schools like to see that you have scored at least a 500. The average MCAT score for the state of Texas for the fall 20 entering class was, I believe, a 510 or a 511. So our students are right around that range. So we're right at the average admitted, or I'm sorry, the average accepted MCAT score, maybe a hair below depending on the year. But I think a lot of that has to do with, or a lot of the reason our students get accepted is, like I said, our focus on community service and our commitment to the community that we're a part of. So even in the years where we had some students who had some lower scores, they were still getting accepted when nobody else in the state of Texas was getting accepted because they had these other things going on. So one thing I didn't touch on is the holistic admissions process. So if anybody in the room has family members or knows doctors, I think that the admissions process has changed a great deal in the past 5 years. And so it used to be, hey, you've got some great MCAT scores, you've got a great GPA, great, come on in, you're gonna be wonderful. But it has shifted to a more holistic process because they want to make sure they're admitting people who are going to be human beings with their patients. They want to make sure they've got empathy and compassion. And when a patient comes in, they're like, well, what are we going to talk about? It can't just be about like what makes you sick, right? So let's talk about books or literature or music and kind of what's going on in your day to day. So all that to say, yes, the MCAT score matters. We're right around the average accepted MCAT score, but even the years where we have students who are below it, they're still getting in due to all the other things that we bring to the table as an institution.
Excellent, fantastic, Jason. So we still have a number of questions and I want to make sure we get to all of them. So I'll kind of move through a few of these more quickly that I think are rather quick answers, but please students do contribute any remaining questions that you have for the time remaining. There's a question about if you can change from pre-med to pre-optometry while you're doing your major at St. Edward's. So maybe just talk briefly a little bit about how easy is it to shift if you're thinking pre-med, then you decide you want to do pre-nursing or pre-OT, or you kind of want to shift around in your interest in pre-health.
Yeah, so major, like I said before, doesn't matter, right? As long as you are doing the prerequisites that you need, pick the major that you want. Some of them are a little bit harder than others, but if you're starting pre-med and you switch to optometry pharmacy, it's a bit easier because pre-med has the most number of prereqs. Whereas if you're going the other direction, if you're saying, hey, I want to go from nursing to pre-med, that might be a little bit harder to pull off just because the number of hours that you need to take care of.
Excellent. We have a question here. You showed a slide with a number of medical schools and graduate programs on it. One of them was the Dell Medical School. Can you talk a little bit about just students who have maybe gone from St. Edward's to the Dell Medical School? What does that look like? What are the opportunities there? Obviously, it's a wonderful new opportunity for students who are looking to continue with medical school in Austin, and it's a wonderful facility. So can you talk a little bit about the Dell Medical School program?
Yeah, Dell Med School is one of the newest med schools in the state of Texas. They are here in Austin. They are also one of the most competitive programs. And so the way Texas public med school admissions works is that you want to apply to all, right? So you don't pick and choose. So you apply to all the Texas public med schools. And so if you were only to apply to just Dell, you probably wouldn't have the greatest chance of getting in, regardless of like numbers, right? So they work with us annually. We do a program called MESH, Making Equity Standard in Healthcare. And so they provide mentorships. They provide a day of mentorship to our students. And so they kind of walk us through tours. They talk to us about some of what their courses look like. They talk to us a little bit about, they do some practice interviews with our students. So we work with them on programs, and we've had a number of students advance into pretty late into their interview stage. And so I'm waiting to hear if anybody's going to get accepted this current cycle, because we have a few students who are interviewing with them right now. But they are a little bit more quiet about some of their admissions processes than some of the other schools. They haven't quite shared all of the secret sauce on that. Yeah, but we work closely with them on programming and stuff.
Excellent, thank you. So we have a follow-up question about the Baylor program, the pipeline program at Baylor. I know you mentioned kind of the pipeline program with the nursing school in Dallas. Is there a pipeline for medical school or dental school, and perhaps to Baylor specifically, but just more generally?
There is not for medical or dental, because those are different. So this one always trips people up. So Baylor's med school is not necessarily Baylor in the way that like Baylor's undergrad or nursing program are. So it is that name, but it's not necessarily associated with the undergraduate institution, if that makes sense, or the nursing school. And so I think they're oh, and Texas A&M dental school too. Sorry, I was trying to run through the list of different dental schools in the state of Texas, and so no, they don't have a pipeline like that, because it's not Baylor in that way. Excellent.
Yes, that is easy to get confused for sure. There's a question from a student who wants to know if they want to be an anesthesiologist. I always stumble over that word. Anesthesiologist, what major should they shoot for? And as kind of a follow-up to that, is it hard to change your major? I know we've kind of talked a little bit about how it doesn't necessarily matter what major you pursue if you're interested in some of the pre-health programs, but just specifically about anesthesiology, is there a specific major that they should shoot for? And if a student wants to change their major, just in general at the university, how easy is that to do?
Yeah. So anesthesiology, your goal is to go to med school. So the major that you choose honestly does not matter, because you'll get all of the things you need specific for anesthesiology once you're in med school and doing your rotations. So choose what makes your heart happy. And if you choose something, you decide, hey, I want to change that thing up, it's pretty easy to do. So you would meet with your academic success coach, and they would basically get that taken care of right away. I usually say, be ready to talk about why you want to change it, right? So is it about the course content? Is it about, you know, the subject matter not exciting you? Keep in mind, if you're like, oh gosh, I hate biology and chemistry, you're going to need that regardless. So, you know, we just need to figure out what major is the best fit for you and what makes you happy. But it is pretty easy to do.
Excellent, thank you. So we have a question here related to merit scholarships that I'm happy to take. The question is, what is the average percent of merit scholarship that an applicant receives? So thank you so much for this question. I'd love to talk about merit scholarships. When a student applies for admission to St. Edward's, whether as a freshman or a transfer student, they're automatically considered for all of the merit-based scholarships that we offer at the university. So a student doesn't need to submit anything additional to be considered for merit scholarships. And then of course, as I mentioned earlier in the webinar, they don't need to submit a test score to be considered for merit scholarships either. Our merit scholarships, generally speaking, go up to about $26,000 per year for students who are applying right now as first-time freshmen, so for high school seniors. That obviously can change from year to year. It usually never goes down. It would only go up. So for those of you who are maybe juniors or sophomores in high school, that amount could certainly shift upwards as you enter the application pool in future years. But to give you an example of the 600 or so freshmen that came in this fall as part of our fall freshman class, on average, a student received over $31,000 per student per year of grant money. So that could be in the form of merit scholarship. It could be in the form of a need-based grant, which again, a grant is the same thing as a scholarship, money that does not have to be paid back. It's not a loan. So there are essentially kind of two principal ways that students are considered for funding at the university, or discount, if you will, off the sticker price of attendance. One is to apply for admission and be considered for merit-based scholarships. If a student's admitted to the university, they will find out in their acceptance notification if they've received a merit scholarship, and if so, how much. And of course, we're always happy to answer any questions that a student has about their merit scholarship offer, or if they want to know how could I get more merit scholarship, et cetera, certainly contact us in the admission office. We're happy to have that conversation with you. And then the other principal way that students can apply for assistance and for funding and for free money is to file the FAFSA form. That opens on October 1st of every year for students who are seniors in high school or college students themselves. They can start filing the FAFSA. Students and families are starting to file the FAFSA now. And once a student has been officially admitted to the university, we will provide a need-based financial aid package for them based on the information in their FAFSA. There's a really fantastic tool on our website that anyone can use at any point. Even if you're a high school junior right now, you can certainly go on there and kind of get an estimate of what you might receive in merit scholarship as well as need-based assistance at the university. And it's called the financial aid calculator, the net price calculator, if you will. If you go to stedwards.edu/calculator, or if you just go to the search tool on our website and search net price calculator, NPC, you will come to the net price calculator that's available on our website, where you can put in a few pieces of information about your high school GPA, where you attend high school, et cetera, and get an estimate of about how much you can receive in merit scholarship. It's actually a very accurate estimate. So it's only as accurate as the information you put in. But it's a really great tool to kind of get a snapshot, if you will, of what you might receive in merit scholarship this year if you are applying this year. And then you can continue on in the tool and put in some basic information about your family's financial situation and essentially kind of get an estimated snapshot of what you can receive on the need-based end. So I highly encourage any of you that are listening right now to go to stedwards.edu/calculator and use the net price calculator for a very quick and easy way to get a sense of what kind of assistance you can receive at St. Edward's. But the average grant package per student in our freshman class this fall was about $31,400 per student. So quite an exceptional amount when you compare it to the sticker price of tuition, and makes tuition much more reasonable when you realize the average amount of grant that's given. And then for a student, we do have a question here for a student about the Moreau Scholarship. Moreau is a scholarship that students from Holy Cross high schools can apply for, and we're happy to have that conversation with you about what that application looks like. There are about 16 Holy Cross high schools in the country, actually 18 now, I'm sorry, on my number, but students at Holy Cross high schools can apply for a special scholarship opportunity since we are a Holy Cross University called the Moreau Scholarship, and we're happy to talk with you about that. So please email us in the admission office and we can share more. Tuition this year for students at St. Edward's is just over $48,000 for the year. Again, that's the sticker price. So what students are actually paying is far less than that. So if you subtract the cost of tuition, if you take the cost of tuition and you subtract it from the average grant package for a student in our freshman class, on average, a student in our freshman class is paying a little over $16,000 for the year for full-time tuition at a private school like St. Edward's University. So a pretty good value, if I must say so myself. So hopefully that answers some questions about merit scholarship. I know there were several, so thank you so much for those good questions. Again, I'm happy to talk with you more about merit scholarship and connect you with your specific admission counselor or have the conversation with you directly. So please feel free to email us at seu.admit@stedwards.edu. You can also find our information on the website in the admission office if you would like to chat with us further. I do want to go to a question that we have about test scores. Thank you so much for your patience and waiting for these questions to be answered. So the question is just about test scores. Even if a student wants to submit a test score, even though they're not required, how would they submit them? So you can self-report them. If you're using the Common App or the St. Edward's application, there is an opportunity to self-report your test scores. And we do essentially consider self-reported test scores for students who want to self-report them. If you do want to have them sent officially, you can send them via the College Board or the ACT, or have your high school counselor or administrator send test scores to us at the SEU admission email. We can accept them officially from a high school as well. But we do consider scores that are self-reported in the Common App or in other applications to be self-reported scores that we do consider officially in the admission process for scores for students who do want a test score considered. So hopefully that answers your question. If you have, again, follow-up questions related to test scores or anything related to the admission process, please do reach out to us in the admission office at seu.admit@stedwards.edu. And then I'll just give an opportunity for any last questions that students might have, or parents as well, for Jason regarding pre-health. We do have a question here that's been sitting here. Thank you so much for your patience for those who have been waiting. But if a student wanted to become a pediatric surgeon, is there a specific pipeline admission program that would be best for that student?
Yeah, I think that it would just be either of the two main kind of like pipelines for medical school admissions. So texasjamp.org, again, since we're one of the hosts institutions that works with JAMP, that would be a good option if a student met the requirements for that. Or if they decide that they want to do that process later on down the road, instead of like the freshman, sophomore year of application, they would then apply to Incarnate Word's medical school. But, I know we highlighted the pipelines, but a lot of our students, because the Incarnate Word one is brand new, so those admissions numbers and those grade acceptance rates are before we even had the pipelines in effect for a lot of them. So pipelines, great things, are kind of like a safety net. But I would say, anywhere you want to apply, we're going to work with you to make sure you get a good application for those programs. So yes, you can go for the pipelines, but don't feel like you need to. They're just your safety net.
Excellent. So let's talk, we have a question about JAMP. Would a student, the question is essentially, would a student apply for that before they enroll at St. Edward's, or kind of once they're in college at St. Edward's? And then also as a follow-up to that, I know we have a number of students from out of state who are listening today. And you mentioned that JAMP is specifically for students who are Texas residents. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. So how do students from out of state who are attending St. Edward's, are they able to take advantage of JAMP? Or if not, are there other programs that they can apply for?
Yeah, so JAMP, they do require you to be a Texas resident. And so there's two entry points into JAMP. And so one of them would be their kind of early admission track. And so that would mean that you have completed 27 hours of college credit in your senior year of high school specifically, including 8 hours of college general chemistry 1 and 2. With a minimum of 3.25 overall GPA and a 3.25 BCPM GPA. And then you would apply no later than either September 30th or October 1st of your freshman year of college. So you'd be on campus for like a month. And then you would need to meet with me really, really quickly because I need to write you a letter. Like that is a hard requirement of the program. Then there's the traditional track, which is basically you must have completed 27 hours of coursework by the end of your freshman year of college, or actually before the fall of your sophomore year, including 8 hours of chemistry. They don't make the requirement of 8 hours of biology, but I would highly recommend it. Again, same GPA standards. And so out of state folks, there isn't, I'm trying to think of how to establish Texas residency per their requirements, but you would essentially need to establish Texas residency for JAMP specifically. I did have one student one year who just barely missed the cutoff, but their whole family was planning on moving to Texas anyways, and so they were going to be there, but they kind of missed the deadline to get the residency requirement in place. I don't know all the legal stuff of declaring residency and getting all that stuff going, so I'm gonna maybe avoid that one altogether so that I don't get myself in trouble. But I think that aside from our own pipeline programs, there are various states that have their own kind of programs like JAMP, but they wouldn't be for Texas public med schools. And I think Texas, actually, I know Texas has the largest number of med schools out of any other state, I believe. So, and we have more coming. There's, I think, 2 or 3 more coming in the next couple of years. So this is a great place to be.
That's exciting. I didn't know about that. Is there anything you can share about where those med schools might be located or
yeah,
associated with?
Yeah, so Sam Houston State University just opened up their medical school. We actually have one of our wonderful alumni who's, I believe, sitting on the board of that medical school. We had Sam Houston State. We have Oh, I guess we have a new veterinary school opening up in Amarillo this coming year. We have a new dental school that just opened up their admissions process, and so they'll be welcoming their first class very soon. Where are the other 2 med schools? I'm blanking on them, but I know there's at least 2 more coming. So yeah, in the next couple of years.
Well, that's exciting. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
No,
that's
you're
exciting
good.
news.
I should know these things.
Well, I didn't know about that. That's really exciting, and I'm sure for a lot of the students listening, I mean that's an exciting tidbit. I didn't even know that about Texas having the most medical schools of any
Yeah.
state, at least as.
I need to double
in your
check that against
recollection.
California, but I think we are now with the #1 amount of med schools in Texas or in the country.
Awesome. Well, Jason, this has been a wonderful presentation with so much great information. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day today to be here with us, connected virtually, but still together, and certainly connected with students from across the country who are interested in learning more. Students, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I know we're all spending a lot of time on Zoom in our personal and professional lives right now. So thank you for taking time to spend this hour with us. I hope that it's been productive and that you've enjoyed the conversation and found it useful as you continue on in your college search. I know this is an incredibly unusual time to be considering colleges and trying to explore and get information and get answers. So please just know that we here at St. Edward's, not just in the admission office, but in career and professional development and across the university team of staff and faculty, we are here for you. So we want to connect with you. We want to hear from you. We want to know what questions you have. We want to be a resource for you to help you learn more about St. Edward's and also just how to approach and navigate the college and financial aid process, because we know that under normal circumstances, it's a very overwhelming process to go through, and certainly even more so now as we're all navigating our lives during a pandemic. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me in the admission office, seu.admit@stedwards.edu. We'll get you to your specific admission counselor or to me, Dinah Kinard. We're happy to follow up with you. If you'd like to get connected with Jason, his information is on the slide. And then certainly we're always happy to connect you with faculty members and specific majors and programs. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I hope you all stay safe, take care of each other, take care of your families, take care of yourselves, and have a wonderful Halloween weekend. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Good toppers.